Now let's fill out the statistics in this pop-up box. So we have played, win percentage, current streak, and max streak. So under the title, I'll write expanded, and we'll create another row because we want each of these statistics to be side by side. To create the first statistic, I'm going to use a column, and that's because we have the stat and then the heading just under it. So I'll create the stat and I'll put in a dummy number, and then under that we'll have the heading. I'll also wrap these in an expanded. Now let's see how that looks. Okay, so we have the stat and then we have played underneath that. Now let's improve the formatting. I'm going to wrap the text in a container just temporarily, just so we can see the formatting here. And I'll give it a placeholder color, and I'll do the same with this text down here. Let's see how that looks. Okay. Now let's fix up the formatting of the text. I'm going to wrap these in a fitted box, and by default these will fit to boxfit.contain, which means the text will be as big as possible without overlapping the available space. And also I'll wrap the bottom text with a fitted box. Let's do a hot reload. Okay, so we're well over bounds here. So to fix that, let's wrap the column also in an expanded. Hot reload. Cool, so using the expanded means that we'll have no overflow errors. Now we want 4 of these stats side by side. Rather than writing each of these out 4 times, let's refactor this into its own Flutter widget. So here on this expanded, I'll right click, refactor, and here I'll extract a Flutter widget and I'll name this stats tile. Now let's cut this and put it in its own file. Import material. Back here, import that new library. Cool, so now we can copy this and paste it a few times down here, so we have 4 in total. Okay, cool, so we have 4 side by side. So in the fitted box we have an alignment property, and here we want the X to be 0 to stay the same, and on the Y we want this to come down closer to the middle. I'll put 0.95. Let's see how that looks. Okay, cool. And now let's also bring the heading up. So use alignment, alignment 0, and this time minus to bring it upwards. Okay, cool, so that looks a lot better. Let's also give this text some padding. So here I will pass in some padding. Okay, and the text up the top, let's also pass in some padding. I'll make this padding a bit smaller. Now it looks like our default text is not being applied on our text here, and that might be because we're using an alert dialog. So no problem, let's grab the text theme and apply it. I'll go style, theme of, text theme, and our default text is body text 2. Okay, cool. Now let's also apply it to the heading text. I'll just paste this in here next to our style. Now if we look back at our Wordle example, we can see the heading text is not bolded, so let's also unbold the text here. To do that easily, we can just amend the existing theme, so just change one property in it. I'll add the copy with method, and I've also added the null operator here. Now we can just change the font weight by writing in font weight, and let's change it to font weight.normal. Okay, cool, that looks a little bit better. I'm also going to increase the size for the values. So again, let's use the copy with, and here I'll add in some font size. let's say we set at 80, and let's increase that padding. Let's make that about 6. Okay, cool. So we have our headings, and I'm actually going to bring this alignment right up to the top, and I'll bring that alignment right down to the bottom. Okay, cool. So I think the layout is fairly close to what we want. Now we need to update these text fields. So let's create a couple of new variables: final string heading and final int value. These should be both required. So down the bottom we want to pass in the heading, and then up the top the value, and we'll call toString on that. Now back in the stats box we need to pass these in. So let's create played, and here just passing in some random numbers until we update this. Okay, now let's see how that looks. Hot reload. Okay, so we have the values updating, but the formatting is looking a little bit off. Let's put each of these words on separate lines. To do that I can write /n for new line. Let's also adjust the text alignment. So I use text align dot center, and the same down here. I'll just copy this. And I'm also going to set some size to the bottom font so it appears a little bit more consistent. And wherever we place a comma and press Ctrl-Alt-L, then it will format that bracket. Let's also add some const files. Right click, show context actions, and I'll select add const modifiers everywhere in file. And I'm also going to remove these containers, we do not need them. Okay, cool. And lastly, I'm going to change the insets here from .all, and I'm going to use from LTRB so I can customize the padding, and that is so I can reduce the gap between the heading and the value. So the top I'll put at 0, and the right I'll leave at 8, and the bottom we can leave at 8 too. Okay, cool. So that just brings that a little bit closer. In the next video, we'll create a button that can restart the game.